The opinions expressed on the Simone Edwards Show by our guest are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of KEPXradio.com, its owner, and or the Simone Edwards Show and those affiliated with it. In no event will the Simone Edwards Show, KEPXradio.com, its owners, guests, hosts, or affiliates be liable for the information disseminated on the program, including, without limitation, any loss or damage, indirect or otherwise, arising from information presented on the show. We trust you are of legal age and will consult appropriate professionals prior to employing any opinions expressed on the show. Many of the topics discussed are personal in nature, and some people may disagree with the opinions expressed on the show. We are open to your constructive criticism and or ideas for future radio programs. Please feel free to email us at thesimoneedwardsshow@gmail.com. All right, good evening, KEPX Radio, or I should say good afternoon, KEPX Radio, and welcome to the Simone Edwards Show. This is our second show on this awesome station. We have imported over from Restless Nation, so we want to say hello to the KEPX audience and those who followed us over from Restless Nation. As always, I have in studio my fabulous, awesome, wonderful godsend of a program manager called Antonia Washington Brown. Antonia, say hello.
Hi, KEPX. I actually did my makeup for you guys today.
We want to look good when we're on radio. We do it right at the Simone Edwards Show. What you saying? What you saying?
Oh, no, we're prepping for when we do the whole video thing.
That's right. That's right. That's right. When we get to video. And we also have here in studio, I am so excited. This is our Youth and Young Adult Spotlight Show. Woo! And we have here in studio an awesome young man that I have had the pleasure of actually working with before, with a venue that we do called Rama Cafe, and we have Samuel Hughes from AIM San Diego.
Hello.
We are so excited to have you in studio, Samuel.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It should be a lot of fun.
Very nice. So let's just start with a couple of things,
Yep.
Especially for the Youth and Young Adult Spotlight Show. Do you want to share with us how old you are?
Yeah, I'm not too old to hide my age yet, so I'm 23.
23, very nice. All right, and so tell me, what does AIM stand for? Let's start there.
AIM actually used to be an acronym that stood for Action Impact Missions, and for right now, AIM is not an acronym, but
Okay.
but it's the heart of the word is the idea of aiming for God's excellence in our life.
I love that. I'm that whole pursuit of excellence thing. That's a big one with me. Because just quick sidebar, being an only child, it can be so easy to get caught up in perfection. So I've learned to step away from perfection and to aim for excellence. So I love that your ministry is doing that.
Well, I'll echo from being a third child. It's not any easier trying to live up to what your older siblings do. And
That's
so
true.
The heart of it is not perfection, but rather faithfulness. Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. What about you, Antonia? I know that you shared the only child thing with me.
Yeah, I had no competition, so it was just me.
Right.
I only had cousins who I was like, yeah, we're not on the same level.
Right. I
Don't
definitely
you compare me to them.
I definitely think that is an only child trait. You know, it's just in the sense, and a lot of times people, I know we kind of went off track with the sibling things, but sometimes siblings don't believe us when we say it's really not a competition thing. Like, I grew up with no one around, so I'm just trying to be better than I was yesterday.
Yeah, the only person I'm competing with is me.
I have enough problems to deal with, yeah.
All right, so Sam, tell us before we dive into AIM and who AIM and how it came about and what you all do. Let's talk about you a little bit because you're the leader of AIM.
Yeah.
And how long have you been the leader?
Let's see. I took over directorship about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And so I had grown up through the program, as it were, starting when I was 8, doing a little junior team, and then going through it and stepping into leadership. And I just felt like it was God's calling for my life and what gifts and passions He's given me to disciple and use mine as that tool of discipleship to bring about the kingdom of God on earth.
That's wonderful. Absolutely love that. So let me ask you a really quick question.
Yeah.
We're going to jump off the deep end just a little bit.
Okay.
what legacy do you want to leave? And this is actually an open round table discussion. Yes, Antonia. And this one has no loophole.
Round table, and there's me, and there's that other person.
So what legacy do you hope to leave?
Legacy for me is interesting. When we talk about like our testimony and kind of the story of our life, I compare it to like a snow globe, in the sense where what's in the snow globe is there. It doesn't change, but the perspective of it can depend on what side you're at. And so for me, my legacy, my testimony will just be, in a sense, another story of what God did in a person. So legacy, I don't know what I'll leave behind. I'm still young, I'm still single, and I don't know exactly where I'm going to go in the next 20 years. My legacy would hopefully be when they see me, they see Christ.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I like that. And I like the fact that you're honest enough to say, I'm still at a place where I don't have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so wonderful, because a lot of times I think we make up stuff.
Too many times in high school, people ask me, well, what are you going to do when you graduate? There's a lot of this pressure, especially with the two older siblings. They both did and are doing amazing things.
Right.
And so it's really hard sometimes when you're looking at that as an older model. And people ask you, what are you going to do with your life now? Mm-hmm. The pressure that can come for that. And so for me, my thought, and this is the process that God's had to lead me through, but I sold my life a long time ago when I was really young and accepted Christ. And so for me to try to demand that my life become something amazing or more important is not fitting, because I sold my life to the person of Jesus Christ. And so whatever he wants to make in my life, I'll let him do it.
Wisdom beyond your years. I absolutely love that answer. And as you were talking, the thing that I just want you to keep in mind is that David was the youngest of his brothers, and God made him king. Mm-hmm. So God tends to have a little sweet spot for the youngest. So what about you, Antonia? What legacy do you hope to leave here in this?
Honestly, I've been thinking this whole time Sam has been talking. It seems like there's some cogs in the wheels right now. But when I think of legacy, I don't think of it as something to be remembered by. Mm-hmm. It's more like setting a tradition, I guess. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the best way I could say it. Not necessarily being remembered for who you were, but having something that you do last for generations to come. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm only thinking short term right now, because I'm only thinking one generation. But it's just, for me, it's the most important legacy for me right now is to impart on my daughter the mentality, or the know-how to work around anything that's thrown at you. And like you said, aim for excellence, not perfection. Because if you aim for perfection, you're just going to let yourself down every time.
Right. I love that. I think that's really wonderful. And I love the fact that I really like the fact that you said, and there's no right or wrong answer. Mm-hmm. I just love your perspective that it's not about trying to be remembered, but it's about leaving something that can continue on. And so you're giving that to your daughter. And so in essence, you will live on, or your works will live on through her. So I think that's beautiful.
It reminds me of 2 Timothy 2:2, where it says, "And the things you've heard from me among many witnesses, teach these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also." This idea of passing on through the method of discipleship, and more importantly, just passing on the kingdom of God and his values to our either our children. I don't have children yet, but or our spiritual children, which I consider as my aim family.
Right. I love that. I would say for me, just to kind of close out the loop, the legacy that I want to leave is that I want people to fall in love with Christ. Mm-hmm. When I get to the other side and God shows me the impact that my life had, I want to be able to turn around and see a sea of faces that saw God differently, in a positive light, because of something that I did on this side, or that he used me to do on this side. You know what I mean? I think more than anything else, it's like I want people to fall in love with him, because he's so much better than we make him out to be, and he's so much greater than we make him out to be, and he's so much wiser, and he's just so much more than what we present him, you know? So
Amen, sister.
I absolutely love that. So tell me, who did you take the ministry over from?
My mom, Cindy Hughes, was the one who had been running it for about, I want to say 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And before that was another woman named Linda Stafford who had basically started our team that we had branched off from another group called San Diego Youth in Action. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's been a little bit of passing directors about every 5 years or so.
Oh, that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's great though, because then you get a fresh take each time, you know. And,
Right. And no
yeah.
one gets burned out on ministry.
Right. I think that's wonderful. So tell me, what inspires you?
What inspires me? Well, hopefully Jesus. That we've talked about that. A couple of my passions. I mean, music is one that I definitely find where I experience a part of who God is through it. I have my associate's degree in music, and every time I sing something or play something, there's a experience of who God is just within the harmony of music and how God brings all things together for good and those kind of principles.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Now I'm fascinated and I want to go study music.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I could inspire somebody.
I think that's wonderful, though. That's what I love about meeting people from different walks of life is because you get to see life through their filter and through their perspective. And it's like, wow, I never saw God from the perspective of music and notes coming together, and it all works out beautifully.
Well, I'm a little bit of a nerd in some sense, so when we're going in music theory class, I enjoy it a little bit too much, and so that I love picking it apart and seeing how God designed wavelengths and science and such to create art. It's beautiful to me.
That's absolutely wonderful, and nerds are welcome here. This is the Nerd Closet.
Awesome. Okay, I'm in the right club.
You are in the right club. So, what motivates you?
Motivates. I think we've talked a little bit already, but discipleship is one of the things that motivates me.
Okay.
About 4 or 5 years ago, when I gave my graduation speech, I had seen myself getting married, and seen myself having kids a lot sooner than I am now. And so one of the things that motivates me is eventually I do want to be a father and disciple my kids. A lot of times I see very passive fathers. My dad is not a Christian. And so he was very good, and he taught me how to do sports and taught me a lot of good skills. But there was something that was lacking just because there was something that he couldn't give me because he didn't receive it himself yet.
Right.
So I desire to give that to my children and to disciple and train them in the way they should go.
I love it. I absolutely love that. So, how do you want in your tenure as director of AIM, how do you want AIM to be remembered?
AIM's vision, as we've talked about it and as it's been shaped a little over the years, in a sense, is to be a family that disciples young people to follow Christ. The family aspect, because discipleship happens within family-like communities. It doesn't happen outside of what God has set up as the body of Christ. Discipleship is what he left us in Matthew, to go and make disciples. The main verb there being make disciples. You do that when you go. You do that when you teach and baptize. And the last part, young people, that's kind of where my heart lies. Right now I'm 23, and so discipling younger people is a little easier than discipling adults. So, and where I feel God's given me the passion, at least right now, with the skills of teaching and mentoring, have been towards more high school age students, and that's where I see a lot of my impact is right now, mostly between the ages of 12 to 18 or so at this point.
So what do you see? So since you are working with young people the most, what do you see as the biggest pull on their lives right now?
Apathy.
Really?
Not in a lot of sense. What I see, I'd say on the older spectrum of those graduating high school, there's a lot of options. If you go back 50 years ago, there wasn't as many options as there were, whether it be travel or whether it be which college I should go to or what job I should have. Options were very limited. You did and you worked to survive, and that was what was expected. You graduate and you go get a job, or if you're going to college, it was for a job. There was this mindset. Whereas now there's so many options that people kind of sit in limbo for a long time and don't get out and actually go do something for God's kingdom. And so what I see a lot of times in high school age specifically is people trying to find out, well, I kind of have these skills, and this kind of makes sense, but they're hesitant to make skills, and either they're not courageous enough or are lacking faith to step out on what God might use them for, and just to go do something already. And God didn't write his plan for you in the sky of who you should marry, what job you should take. But if you're following his will of being holy and blameless and having Christ live in you, then what you do and your decisions will naturally flow out into who God is, no matter what decision you make.
I think that's really good, and it takes a lot of pressure off of young people. You know what I
Right.
mean? That to be able to communicate that message to them, that it's not about, or even adults, because I think sometimes even adults struggle with what it is that I'm supposed to do. And I remember reading a blog the other day by Shauna Scuttle. I'm butchering your name, I apologize. But in it, one of the things she talked about was, this whole sense of waiting to find out what it is that God wants me to do, and that waiting to discover, or that paralysis of analysis and not moving forward and not doing anything, that it really just comes down to do something.
Right.
And in the process of doing something, you'll discover what it is that God has called you to do. So at this time, we are going to take a brief commercial break. We'll be back in studio with Sam Hughes of AIM, wise beyond his years. We've completely enjoyed this conversation. So KEPX, we'll be back in just one moment.
Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's show? Would you like to share your testimony or any constructive critiques? Would you like to know how to become a guest on the Simone Edwards Show? Well, please feel free to email us at thesimoneedwardsshow@gmail.com. We are also available on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Be sure to follow us to receive updates regarding the show and our other ministries.
Okay, we're back in studio with Samuel Hughes of AIM San Diego. And when we left off, he was talking to us about the importance of just going for it instead of, sitting and weighing in the balance.
Waiting for writing in the sky or some kind of divine intervention.
Right. And, not to knock those things. There are some people that do get the divine intervention, and there are some people that they, God, what do I do with my life? And they happen to stumble upon, they have those happy accidents.
Right.
And I think it's important for just step out and do something and just trust God to order your footsteps. So I think that that's absolutely wonderful. So, AIM San Diego, let's talk about how many people are in AIM.
Right now, with the team that's here in San Diego, we have 8 people, so it's a little smaller than we normally run. Normally a team is, can be up to 14 people, or if it gets bigger, we'd split it into 2 different groups of the same ministry. But
Okay.
so it's a little smaller than normal right now, but yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what's the age range for AIM?
Age range, we run kind of 2 different age ranges just for discipleship purposes. So the whole spectrum is about 8 to 18. We'll normally run like a junior team that's about 8 to 12 or so, and then the older team that's about 12 to 18.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So take us through what a rehearsal and the planning process. Let's talk about, before we get to rehearsal, let's talk about the planning process. What does the planning process for AIM looks like? Do you operate on a semester? Do you operate on a school calendar year? How does that go?
We echo, in a sense, the school calendar.
Okay.
One of the things with discipleship is that it takes commitment. So asking someone just to kind of commit to a ministry can be really hard. So what we do is we section it off into 3 or 4 month sessions. And those kind of parallel with the school year. So we have the fall session, the spring and winter session, and then a summer session normally.
Okay.
So that way, people when they commit, they're signing up for 3 to 4 months. If they want to continue on, there's plenty. I mean, you can do as many sessions in a row as you want. But
Okay.
Yep.
So in each session, so let's say for the fall, do you guys is that when you book your shows? Is that when you audition? Do you guys do auditions?
Right. We don't audition in a normal sense of, okay, you have to be this good at mime or something to join. Discipleship calls people to be more than they are now.
Right.
And the sole commitment for discipleship is that they're willing to make the effort to be there for the practice times and the presentations, and that they're willing to be faithful to the ministry. So we'll take anybody within the age range that's willing to commit. We teach them. Normally in the fall we teach, or I should say at the beginning of each session we teach basic mime technique, basic skills of Bible study, just the tools that every team member should have. And then depending on the team, we might go more advanced or more in depth in certain areas. Each session we kind of go through a book of the Bible, which kind of gives its own feel. So whether you're going through a gospel or an epistle, it kind of gives a different feel to how you're studying it. And so they'll get different things or different tools to study the books.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it sounds as though being a part of AIM is not just a matter of, okay, you're going to come in and you're going to learn how to mime and you're going to learn this really cool song,
Right.
but you're actually expected to be a student of the Bible while you're a part of AIM.
Right. The idea is discipleship, if I haven't said it enough already.
Right.
And that includes evangelism, that includes teaching, that includes time under a mentor. And so the idea is that the way we share the gospel in a kind of different and quirky way is through mime. And so that all our pieces have either an element or the full story of who the gospel is, and understanding who God is, what he's done for us, and how we should respond to that in the Christian life. So that's kind of the outside. That's what people see a lot of times. When you do a presentation, you share the gospel, they see the mime group and they want to join. But the heart of it, there's discipleship where there's every practice, every week we have different times to pray for each other. About an hour we go through different sections of the Bible that the team members and the leaders of the team actually give themselves. I only give about the first one or two Bible studies for the session, and from there they're delegated which part and what section of the Bible that they're going to give a study out of. So they're the ones that are giving, and then afterwards we'll debrief and give them notes, so that it's not just hearing a pastor on Sunday, but this is them actively participating and actively hands-on coming to who Jesus is and a better understanding of his word.
What I love about what I'm hearing is seeing the long term of it, and that someone may decide after a year, I'm not going to continue being a mime, but they've learned skill sets that they can then take, and so they continue on the discipleship of what they gathered and what they learned.
Yep.
So they can take it on into their lives. So whether it's, whatever aspect of ministry that they continue in, whether it's becoming a mother or a father or a husband, a wife, whatever the case may be, a CEO, they can take the skill set on with them.
Right. Of the 11 years of AIM San Diego's history, we've had over 100 students come through the group in different forms, some in large teams of 20 and some in small teams of 8. But God has always been faithful, and seeing the launching or the discipleship part where they're commissioned into the world is awesome, because they go and do different things, whether it be nursing or whether it be different avenues in other colleges or where they're impacting. It's funny when I go to an event and I see our alumni just kind of scattered. I can tell someone, hey, there's mimes among you. This idea of that there is enough of them in a community that's created that, they are launched into the world and to impact their own separate lives. They're not just held within AIM.
That's wonderful. So I want to go back to what you were talking about with discipleship, and I love the 360-degree discipleship approach that you take, and I think it's one of the things, having seen your group perform, I think it's one of the things that makes AIM very unique, because when you guys get up there to perform, to minister, however you choose to word it, right? There is a definite difference with your mime group than even with other mime groups that I've seen, and there's this cohesiveness that's there, and I think a lot of that has to do with the discipleship aspect.
Right. I'd also add that it's family. I mean, discipleship is family, and so family is the kind of group that fights together, that lives together, and dies together.
Right.
I end on dies intentionally. We're saying that we're stuck together, and that spiritually we die to ourselves as a group every single day, and that's the idea, that we stay knit and tight, and we don't leave each other. That's the commitment on the other side, that the atmosphere that where discipleship happens is that safe environment where you can trust the other person. It's not a youth group in the sense of sharing your prayer request and feeling almost either guilty because you're asking for prayer for something you're struggling with, or you're not sure if anyone's going to pray for you, or it's not shallow. The idea is that when you share your prayer request, you know the other people across of you are going to pray for you,
Right.
And that you know that you're in a community that wants to help you become more like Christ.
I love that. And so I'm going to segue a little bit, because a branch of discipleship is accountability. And so what do you do with the person who is now a part of AIM, but then they're they're not committed. They're at one rehearsal and then they're not at the next rehearsal, and then you don't see them for a few weeks and they show up,
Right.
3 weeks later.
Right.
How do you all handle that as a group?
We got on them.
Okay.
No, but at the beginning of the session, and this is part of what we try to be upfront in the Gospels. When Jesus comes and calls his disciples, it's at work. It's a really awkward setting, probably, if you can imagine somebody coming into your work environment and saying, "Hey, come follow me." But the cost was up front for Jesus when he's saying, you're going to need to leave your job behind. You're going to need to leave your financial security behind. You're going to need to leave what your family legacy is, and leaving your father in the boat. And so we're not that extreme. But the idea is we try to show our commitment up in front.
Right.
So we have a commitment document. So if anyone's interested, we leave that up on our website at aimsandiego.org. So if they are interested in joining, they can read through that. It's 6 pages, so it can seem a little tedious. But the idea is that it shows everything that you're supposed to know before you join. It can list out the roles of what the parents should do, because it is a youth ministry, so parents are a very key aspect. My authority and my ability to disciple comes from the parents, and so the parents are involved in it. So it lists how they're involved, more than just driving them to practice, as well as the roles of the students, the student leaders, of what you should expect from me and while I'm there, as well as some other odds and ends of how to take care of your equipment in there. We try to list everything up in front, so if someone doesn't show up to practice, I can say, "Hey, this is something you committed to," and they understand that from the beginning. The parents will help be able to keep them accountable for that as well.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So let's just segue just a little bit, just step to the side a little bit, because we're going to get into the parent aspect of AIM.
Yep.
Who keeps you accountable? Because you keep them accountable. Right. So who do you answer to?
Good question. So AIM is at one point a national ministry, and so the founders, Tess and Jory Rolfe, about 15 years ago, were a brand new couple that traveled through the U.S. specifically and started different teams with the heart and vision of young people stepping up and to being the next generation of leaders. So there's sister teams. The two that I'm in contact with the most, one runs a ministry called Drama Ministries in Pennsylvania with the director Tim King, who's someone that I meet with about once a month over video chat, as well as Jared Pock, who is the director of a team in Wyoming. So that's kind of my accountability. I actually just had a meeting with him this morning, talking about plans of a future leadership conference, and us trying to get together and talking about where our teams are at. And so that's kind of where my support network with AIM specific comes for, as well as my mom, because she was the director. That is someone I end up going home and going, I do not know what to do about this, and she'll be someone that I talk to a lot with.
That's wonderful, because a lot of times I get concerned for leaders, because so often when you are giving out and you have other people that look to you, you need to be able to have that person that you can look to to say, hey, keep me in line, or hey, make sure that I don't go too far off the reservation.
Well, and part of my story being that I don't have a Christian father has been one of the struggles I have in my life of just having people that I can have mentor me and disciple me. So that is definitely something that I look towards and appreciate when people, even parents, just have different feedback and things they can say to me.
That's wonderful. We are going to take another commercial break, and we will be back in studio with the awesome and dynamic Samuel Hughes, who once again is wise beyond his years. We are going to be back with AIM San Diego in just a moment.
Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's show? Would you like to share your testimony or any constructive critiques? Would you like to know how to become a guest on The Simone Edwards Show? Well, please feel free to email us at thesimoneedwardsshow@gmail.com. We are also available on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Be sure to follow us to receive updates regarding the show and our other ministries.
And we are back here in studio with Samuel Hughes of AIM San Diego. And when we last left off, we were talking about how he does a little bit of ministry self-care to make sure that he has those people that he can report to as well. So that's wonderful. And you talked about the person who started AIM, and then the people on the national level that you can reach out to and have conversations with, and your mom, who is a former director. So hi, Sam's mom. We know that you're listening, so great job.
You might want to be careful. She doesn't like the word Sam. She doesn't like me being called Sam, so just throwing that out there.
I'm sorry, Mom. That will be Samuel.
Yes.
I did not say Sam. I apologize in advance. So we are back here in studio. So we want to talk to you now about the parents' role in AIM. And I love the fact that there's a commitment agreement that the parents have to sign. I think that's excellent. I really do, because it makes AIM a collaborative family effort, and it's not just a babysitting ministry.
Right. Well, and again, like family community has parents involved in it. And so that's kind of the hope, is that the parents would not think of this as a drop-off ministry, but somewhere where I invest in their children alongside of what their goals are already. We're still working on, as I took an internship last summer, kind of learning how to disciple better. And so for me, I've been trying to revamp the ministry and how we do things, but one of my hopes is that at the beginning of the session, the parents would have something where they say, here are the goals for my kids, here's what we're trying to work on with them. And yeah, that would be something that I, as a director, my role of partnering with the parents would be such that I would know what what they want to work with their kids, so that when they have prayer times, I can ask them about certain areas of their life, and come to the parents and say, here's what I think that our next few steps are.
I think that's really wonderful. So what is a day in the life of an AIM parent looks like from your perspective?
From my perspective, I was never an AIM parent, so I've been on the other side. I've been a team member, team leader, and a junior member, but I haven't been a parent yet. So what my perspective is that I couldn't put it in hourly terms, but when it comes to the responsibility to get them to practice, they're available for normal conversations. So after practice, when they're saying, here's what I'm working with my kid, as well as what our family is going through. What I also appreciate, especially about the parents that we have right now in the ministry, is that they're the kind that will invite me over, and we'll talk and dinner, and so have that life on lifetime in their home, seeing how their family interacts, so it's not just in theory, outside, in this superficial environment of practice once a week, but that daily we can be either emailing or in each other's lives and talking about where the family's at. So from the parent perspective of the commitment, practice is essential, getting into presentations is essential, but it's also just a few of those off time things of having different social events outside of practice and presentations, as well as there's one or two commitments of, like, when we have a fundraiser, they help bring something for the fundraiser. So all in all, it's not too crazy. It's more practical.
Okay. How do you all handle, as a leader, how do you handle conflict in the group?
Good question. Biblically, hopefully. The first idea...
What, no throwing punches?
I know. I don't see that one. Well, there was that Jesus in the temple moment, but I don't know if that had quite the same principles to apply here. But the basic idea is that it depends on where the problem is at. A lot of times, and this is the most common one, is it's just an authority issue. So whether it be the student at practice is having an authority issue because he doesn't want to listen to the girl leader or the guy leader or whatever it be, or if it's a parent overstepping their boundaries of really kind of helicopter parenting, or coming in and really taking over the job when it should be the student's job.
Sorry, I just took offense to that.
I'm sorry. Discipleship includes release, and that includes the ability to mess things up. Kids mess things up. And so when it comes to, like, when we just ran a fundraiser about a week and a half ago. And so when we ran it, one of my student leaders was the one who was in charge of running it. And so even when there are things that I say, well, that could probably be better, I didn't jump in and step in and create chaos and take away her authority. Rather, we made it a learning opportunity that when after the event was over, we brought back, we debriefed, and we talked how did we disciple well, what can we work on better to disciple better, in the logistics of the event. How can we make what we do more productive, either in financial terms or in discipleship? And so when there's a conflict in the group, most of the time authority is the problem, and so normally it gets addressed within the commitment document of each position's role and authority. So if a parent starts stepping in too much, then I'll just say either to let them deal with the problem and let them struggle a little bit, or just to have the confidence in me that I'm watching and I'm protecting my sheep, if as it were. I'm protecting their children and doing what I believe is best for them to grow.
I love that. And it leads me to my next question is, how do you handle the parent when the conflict is with the parent? Mm-hmm. And so now here and you are.
The parent's older.
Right. So here you are, you're 23,
right,
and you have a mom or a dad who's, in their 30s or 40s. And
right. Lots more experience, lots more wisdom in theory than me.
Right.
So the way I consider myself is an under shepherd to the team. And so my responsibility comes from the parents, and so it's very key that we are on the same page, the same level of what the heart of this ministry is. So there's times when, whether it be for a fundraiser or for something that the parents can be very caught up in, this is not most efficient for, let's say, raising money for the fundraiser. Whereas my mindset is saying, well, how are we discipling? How is the heart of the ministry truly being impacted, not just trying to make money to support the team? Money is important to support the team, but if we're losing discipleship for money, we become bankrupt in our heart.
Right.
So my when I'm dealing with parents is a very humble approach, because I do realize my authority comes from them. Mm-hmm. And my goal is always reconciliation, of trying to get back on the same page of what the heart of the ministry is. So humble, other than humble and direct, that's normally how I would deal with the situation.
Absolutely. I love that. And if I can just throw this in mm-hmm. as just a lot of times it makes me think of Timothy and Paul's advice mm-hmm. to him, and how he told him to conduct himself with the younger women and with the older women, right. and treat the older men as fathers and mm-hmm. the older women as mothers, and to have a godly relationship with the younger women mm-hmm. And with the younger men. So mm-hmm. I just want to say, for those who are listening who may be considering sending your child to AIM and to have them participate in AIM for whatever length of time, is, be sure to pray for Lift Up Sam in mm-hmm. prayer. Lift Up Samuel. Sorry, Mom. I apologize. I had to fix that really quickly. Lift Up Samuel in prayer, because mm-hmm. there's great pressure being a young man and having to walk that balancing that balance, that tightrope, and trying to balance between making the parents happy and fulfilling his purpose, and making the young people happy and keeping the peace. And there are times when just as adults we want to pull our hair out. I'm sure that there are times when you want to pull your hair out, but you have to keep it together and smile when what you want to really do is scream.
Professionalism, yeah. Well, and from my perspective, I am young, and so I have learned plenty of things and made plenty of mistakes in my time, and will probably continue to make plenty of other mistakes. I tend to be more of a visionary than a practical person, mm-hmm. so there's plenty of next year we'll do this big event, when I haven't planned for the one that's right in front of me. So there's plenty of mistakes that I commonly make, and parents have been very understanding and gracious and merciful to me already. So I'm very appreciative of that and the wisdom that they do have. And so my biggest concern is just making sure that the heart of the ministry is discipleship of our young people, to train them to become godly young men and women, to commission them out into the world to make a difference in their communities.
I love that. And so I want to go to something you just said, which just opened an entire Pandora's box. Because leaders, for the most part, what I've seen in my experience, leaders tend to be visionaries, the people that God calls mm-hmm. into positions of leadership. They tend to be visionaries. And so you're right. See the big picture, mm-hmm. and we're going to do this down the road. And who is that person in your life that's beside you going, that's awesome, and I think you should write that down. We're going to mm-hmm. put a pin in that. But
right.
let's deal with the fact that we're in May, yeah. and we have something coming up next month.
Yeah.
So, that we need to address.
And give me a little stink eye at the same time. Well, I will give a little shout out to Brooke Amos. She's one of my leaders on the team, mm-hmm. Who is that orderly, structured person that is one of the few people that I have of structure that keeps me down and organized, as well as my other leaders, Calvin, her brother, and Rebecca are the people that are my core leaders within the team, as were my 3 out of the 12 disciples of James, John, and Peter. And so they're my leaders on the team, and so they're the ones that when I'm talking about things and trying to have them understand the bigger picture, they're the ones that are helping me with the practical and managing things on the team and making sure that things aren't getting forgotten.
Okay, that's wonderful. So let's talk about being a creative and working with a bunch of creatives. And so let's talk about the creative temperament for a little bit. We are moody. We have...
Speak for yourself.
We tend to have highs and lows because that's a part of the creative pendulum.
Right.
And so so now when you have an entire group of creatives, how do you rein all of that in and kind of bring all of that in a way that is going to be, and harness all of that energy in a way that is beneficial for all?
Right. So part of the benefit of using mime is a very a structured thing in a sense, where there's these 5 elements of a gesture or performing an act, as well as drama. Yeah, it's very creative, but there's also some principles that we teach. So when it comes to like how we write our pieces or present them, like an oral practice or beginning of our session, we'll be teaching the students our song list for the session or our pieces for the session, and a lot of those are pre-choreographed. They've been part of our history, that a lot of the team members know them. We may switch parts around, but for most part it's known. So when you're teaching it, it is here's the blocking. You can go from this part. You should look afraid. You should do this, and then you should look happy and joyful. So there's a general sense of blocking and organization there. So when it comes to the creative, at that point you already have the structure in place of the piece of what it should look like, and then you're just telling them how to create better facial expression, how to convey the message more clearly, more soundly, and make more impact to the audience, so that they see the person of who Jesus Christ is in our minds.
I love it. So we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to find out how AIM picks their pieces and how they get their inspiration, how they pick the music, and all that good stuff. So we hope that you've enjoyed this interview with Samuel Hughes of AIM San Diego, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's show? Would you like to share your testimony or any constructive critiques? Would you like to know how to become a guest on The Simone Edwards Show? Well, please feel free to email us at thesimoneedwardsshow@gmail.com. We are also available on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Be sure to follow us to receive updates regarding the show and our other ministries.
And we are back in studio with Samuel Hughes of AIM San Diego. And I just want to give a shout out to my awesome program manager. I really do. There are so many things, and she's just so calm and collected, where I'm going to get there one day. I really am. Someone told me once I was like a duck on a pond, because I'll have this like very calm exterior, but on the inside I'm like, oh my God, 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 oh my God. And so what we're talking about is a technical glitch that she just fixed right here in studio, and every day God just proves to me, seriously, snap it up for Antonia. Every day God just shows me that she was an assignment. And so I just want to take this moment to give a huge shout out, because he knew I would need help, and she is the perfect fit. So, yay. So we want to talk to you, Sam, about who is your perfect fit? Who is your, for lack of a better word, not that she doesn't have her own identity and her own ministry, but who is your Jonathan in ministry? Who is your Joshua in ministry?
Partner. This one is interesting. Accountability partners I've had over the years in different forms. And it's always been for a season. So right now, I'd say my biggest partner in crime or partner in ministry, however you want to think about it, are those people that are part of the accountability system, with Tim, who's in Pennsylvania running his ministries. He accidentally, as he worded it, started 2 churches this last month. So so he's one of the people that I take a lot of partnership in, as well as Jared, who's in Wyoming, as well as the people and leadership he has that I know very well there. And so those are kind of my partners that I have now, even though they're a little spread apart. As well as I would say my team, Calvin is 19, and so even though he's a little bit younger and there's a sense of I'm his leader, there's definitely a lot of things that I learned from him, and how we spend our time and how we glean from each other, and different strengths that we have.
I love that. And, the Bible talks about iron sharpening iron.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was newly saved, there is a dear woman here in San Diego that I absolutely love to death. And I remember there's several things that she taught me along the way. And one of them was, God can use anybody to teach you, so always be open to learn the lesson. She said, God can use a child. And so before we get into AIM and their practice, I just want to give a big hi, how you doing, Earlene Huggins? I appreciate the lessons you taught me. So let's segue into what we talked about before we went to break, and that is, how do you pick your pieces?
So pieces for us come down to the gospel and how we present it. Discipleship, its outflow is through the gospel and evangelism. And so our pieces are either geared towards the entire story of the Bible. So one of our pieces is called El Shaddai. It's kind of talking about how God is the same God over time, and it starts from creation and goes to the end, and kind of that big picture. Another one's called Virtuoso, comparing God to a virtuoso in music, how he's mastered and created the perfect harmony of life to come together. So all the sour notes and all the beautiful notes are something that contrasts and makes himself known through it. So those are kind of the big pictures. Or some of our pieces are a lot more specific, and so we have one called Propitiation that focuses just on the aspect of propitiation. If you don't know what that big word means, it's good. Watch the piece and you'll know it. The idea of God taking and transmuting, or taking our sin from us and putting it onto Jesus and what he did on the cross. So our pieces, doesn't matter if the music is has words to it. So 10th Avenue North song Healing Begins is one that we do, talking about how we receive healing of our sins, and once we become a Christian, how we as a community come together and support each other in becoming more like Christ. So whether it be a specific song like that, or whether it be an instrumental one that we create, and as our team brainstorms and puts the piece together, we go, okay, what do we want to talk about? How do we want to explain who God is? The most recent one that we choreographed on our last mission trip was, the song is called Storm Force Epic. We call it forbearance, and talking about how God can have love and justice at the same time. That he didn't punish sin right away, but how he held it up or reserved it for Jesus and what he did on the cross.
That's beautiful. So that's part of the execution, and so now we kind of see the big picture. So we want to talk about the overarching aspect of who God is and what he does, and his faithfulness to humanity from beginning to end. Or you focus on the pieces of the gospel. So now let's get into the planning stages. How do you come up with, let's say, Healing Begins? Is it a matter of you hear a song and you get you're inspired to do something with it, or someone brings something to you? How does that start?
Right. Well, it's kind of like music writing. I don't know if that's a inspiration to somebody, but if you're a music writer, it's a similar picture where it doesn't always happen the same way. So a lot of our pieces have come, at least in our history, from somebody hearing the song, having this picture in their mind. One of the pieces that my sister actually choreographed was started with a picture and then developed into the rest of the song. And so they all come out differently. This last one that we choreographed, Forbearance, we've started to try to be intentional about when we're creating pieces, making it actually a team unifying event. So it's, when I look at that song, the ideas or the pictures in it aren't just one person putting their ideas into action, but rather a collection and hodgepodge of everyone's ideas coming together over, I'd probably say, 7 or 8 hours over different sessions of coming together and saying, here's our point, what stories do we want to include to show our point. And at the end, I would say it's one of my favorite pieces, because it was a collection of not just my ideas, but other people who were able to put input of how they saw this playing out in different stories we could use.
I love that. So you have said one of the things you just said is that it could take anywhere from 7 to 8 hours. So
Right.
when a piece is actually born, so if we, we'll use the metaphor of childbirth. When a piece is actually born, is it all done in the same day, or is it sometimes several days or several
Right.
weeks?
Well, this last one, because we were training to go on a missions trip, we had a few days. We spaced it out, so having different 1 hour or 2 hour sessions of brainstorming. So the first one was just listening to the song over and over again and trying to get some idea of what we were going for. By the end, we were walking around and trying to block the ideas that we created. So we normally do it in different sessions, just because 8 hours of thinking and brainstorming and creativity is hard for anybody.
Right.
So spacing it out was part of the unifying effect of allowing people to have breaks and to recharge creatively.
Okay, that's really wonderful. So now, when you flesh it all out on paper, how long are the rehearsals?
So right now our practice schedule, we go about 4 o'clock to 7:30, so about 3.5 hours. That includes, at the beginning, the church we use allows us to use the facility for free. So what we do as our thank you is we clean up the facility. So we'll start normally just with a walk around cleaning up the trash that's on the outside that the wind blows around. Then we'll go into our Bible study time. That lasts anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Then into our prayer groups. We're a little small, so we're keeping it in one group right now, but normally it would be groups of either 4 or 5 people or 3, however that worked out. And then after that hour and a half or so, since the beginning, we use the next hour and a half or the last 2 hours of practice to rehearse our songs. So most of them, because at the beginning we have like a training camp just to get them all up. This is our polishing. Okay, so we know the song, you kind of have it memorized. How do we make it, make the gospel clear, and how can we make it have an impact on people?
That's beautiful, and I love the fact that you all commit an hour and a half to know we're going to put God first, and we're not just going to come in, but we're actually going to study the Word, and we're going to pray together, and then we're going to go into our rehearsals, which I'm assuming should, for the most part, create a really, not only the awesome presence of God in the room with you all, but it kind of helps to alleviate a lot of the stresses and a lot of the pressures and a lot of the issues that young people are dealing with by the time they get to.
Right. No, and some of my favorite pieces, having grown up through the ministry, or parts that I have done, are the ones that were most meaningful and impactful to me, of understanding who God was and how he was with me through what I was going through. One of the songs we do during Christmas time is called I Celebrate the Day, talking about how this pondering moment of who Jesus is. At what point when he was born did he know that he was going to be the Savior of the world, or did he know the whole time? Or this is kind of this pondering thought. And this part that really spoke to me was saying that to look back, to think that this baby was born to one day save me, and this idea of that I might really live. That at that point in my life, I was living, I was walking from place to place, but there wasn't joy, there wasn't a real life that Jesus was giving me.
Right.
And so that part for me, I was able to take what my life was having at the time and put it into the part.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I absolutely love that. And, if we can just segue a little bit, I love the thought of, because I've thought the same thing, what is it like to know, we all know we're going to die, but it's one thing to know you were created to die. You were created to die for the sins of and to have to live with the weight of that on your mind,
Right.
And to live with the reality of that, and to see that timeline coming towards you, and to hear the times when he spoke and said to his disciples, I'm going to Jerusalem.
Take up your cross. We're going.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of taking over Rome and taking back the kingdom that way, Jesus' way of taking over the kingdom of God was through laying down your life. For whoever loses his life will save it.
Yes.
I definitely have never struggled with like suicidal thoughts, but it almost can feel like that as a Christian sometimes, that our call is to die to ourselves and our fleshly desires.
Right.
If I may quote two of my favorite songs that I've been with me is Run's Reliant K, this is how I choose to live, as if I'm jumping off a cliff, knowing that you'll save me.
Right.
This idea of trusting God with, in a sense, or if it could feel like blind faith, but this that moment of when you're about to jump or go do something, just trusting God in it. The other one's from Laura's story called From Blessings, when it says the pains that we have in this life, we understand that this is not our home.
Right.
And so when we're living our lives and we feel this pain and this hurt from sin, we can trust God that this is just the walking path until we get to our final destination, where we be with God with no sin, able to be in front of his presence and just worship him for who he is without anything holding us back.
I absolutely love that. I couldn't think of a better way to segue. So before we close, because we are almost out of time, I first of all, before I even ask the question of where you all perform, so keep that in your Rolodex, I just want to say what a pleasure it's been interviewing you. And I love the fact that you are just so grounded and just so very settled in this assignment that God has given you for this time. And I pray that God takes you higher and that he reveals more of himself to you and that he draws you closer. And I really do, Sam. I pray that God, Samuel, sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry, Mom. Samuel. I pray that God blesses you. I really do. I pray that God blesses you exceeding abundantly above all that you could possibly ask or think, for the labor that you are doing in his name right now. So where has AIM performed?
We will, if we're someone listening to right now and you're wondering about if AIM can perform for your group, we go from anywhere from the streets to the churches. We've done Pasadena Rose Parade, where people are sitting out waiting for the Rose Parade the next day, New Year's Eve, and we've gone and presented on street corners with our sounds equipment and showed them the gospel while they're just waiting for a parade the next day, as well as different church venues on a Sunday morning or a Sunday night or whenever your church meets, to present the gospel and to encourage the believer in Christ. We will also be at Ramus Cafe, Lord willing, if we haven't quite talked about it yet. But those are definitely all venues. We love to serve. We love to show who Christ is in our minds.
And having worked with them before, I can vouch for them. Incredibly professional, timely. The parents are awesome. I did not encounter one stage mom or stage dad.
Yep.
They just a wonderful group of people as an entire unit, and it has been such a pleasure being on air with you. KPX Radio, I hope that you have enjoyed this interview, and we encourage you to go to their website,
aimsandiego.org.
aimsandiego.org, and you can also find them on YouTube if you want to check out some of their prior performances.
Right. On the website, there's a video page that you can go to, and it'll have a few of our YouTube links, so you can kind of just see a picture of what it is. Also, feel free to email me. You can email me at samuel@aimsandiego.org, and you will be able to email me for any videos or any resources. And I will give you my phone number. We can talk about either presentations, someone joining the team, or any opportunities that you think would apply for us.
Excellent. Again, it's been such a pleasure having you here in the studio with us. We've had a wonderful time, and Mom, I am going to not call him Sam anymore. I am going to stop. So until next week, KEPX Radio, we will see you next Saturday, when I believe our hosts will be the Love Doctors of Perfecting Love Marriage Ministries. We're going to be in here talking about love and marriage and family and all those awesome things that just make this life that God has given us, even sweeter. Have a wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you next time. Bye.